Star Trek: The Next Generation was a show.
Star Trek: The Next Generation
everybody
was
I interacted
a show that I started watching when I was a really little kid. Can you believe it's been 30 years? Star Trek: The Next Generation first.
Star Trek: The Next Generation was my life as a kid. It was the escape from reality.
Welcome to Next Generation's First Generation, where Patrick Delmore and Sascha Schaudies take a look back into their favorite childhood show, Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is where we attempt to reconcile how we felt as children watching the show and looking back as old farts now in our late 30s, almost 40s.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Next Generation's First Generation. I am Sascha Schaudies, your co-host, and with me we have the lovely Patrick Delmore.
Hey everybody!
And along with us today is Nigel.
Hey everyone!
Yay! And then Gemleen.
Hello!
And of course our good friend Matt.
Hi.
Yay! Today is a very fun episode. It is called Hollow Pursuits. This is where we introduce, I would have to say, one of the more lovable characters in the Trek world, Reginald Barclay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he is very interesting, and I would have to say one of the deeper characters that we have in this show, and more kind of down to earth and real life folks. So what we're going to do today is we are going to play this episode and listen along, and we will provide you this lovely commentary track. So if you want, queue up your favorite DVD or Netflix. We are using the Chinese bootleg DVD today, and we're going to give you the countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and play.
Age. So Jem, you've never seen this, right?
Correct. Ooh,
I am looking forward to your reactions to a lot of things that happen in this episode. I'm very happy to hear you.
I'm not gonna lie, I love that dress though.
Yeah.
That's my first reaction.
Here's Guinan telling this guy, I don't want any trouble.
Lieutenant Barclay.
Ooh, LaForge just tearing him up.
It is, and you'll observe. So get back to your post.
Get back to your post. Yeah.
Why don't you do me a favor? Take yourself and your holier-than-thou attitude.
Just watched a documentary on the making of Home Alone the other day, so when he's like, look pal, like I think immediately Home Alone.
He just pushed Geordie out of the way.
Now, who grew up with the A-Team? Anybody?
Yes!
Because I didn't, so I knew Dwight Schultz from Star Trek, not from the A-Team.
Exactly.
I think it was only within the last 10 years I even knew that he was from the A-Team.
Really? Yeah, because I do remember him from the A-Team.
I never watched it.
That's why he looked familiar.
I knew who Mr. T was, and that's it.
Look at this guy. He has got Riker in a pinhole. Jonathan Frakes' back must be hurting so much right now. And there's Troy.
I'm trying to figure out what's up with Troy. Like, that's what I'm distracted by.
Hey, look, there's obviously something wrong. They're not calling security. Your two men of power are just kind of scampering away.
Your confidence.
Ew.
And what is Troy doing?
Ew, what? What's going on?
Troy is totally turned on by his confidence.
Girl.
Oh.
Look away.
He just called away.
You'll have to wait till later, darling.
Ew, don't, ew.
Be right there.
What?
Yeah, right? Who is this guy? How did he get on the ship and boss everybody around?
Save program.
And
So,
it was all an illusion. He was on the holodeck.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's one of those, didn't you ever want to just tell your boss off? This is basically what he does.
No, I'm not. I was gonna ask Nigel something, but I don't want to call you out on something right now.
I have gotten angry at my boss before, yes.
No. Can I call you out on something then?
Feel free.
So you said that you felt Barclay was like you, and they said, so you have a magnetic pull towards women dressed up saucily?
So a lot of things are...
No, I want to hear the answer to this question. This is way more important than your commentary right now.
Are you sure?
So a lot of things are happening here that are really quick. We walk into the cargo bay, and Riker and LaForge are kind of talking smack about Barclay, saying how his nickname's Broccoli. They're saying, how does a guy like that get through the academy? They beat him on some samples. One of the sample containers is broken, so they kind of get it out of the side. Barclay walks in, and instead of directly walking into the scene, he kind of sneaks around the edge of the cargo bay not to be seen. And Riker, being the tough guy in the playground, flexes his muscle and says, "Hey, get over here," and pulls him aside and kind of gives him a dressing.
I disagree with that.
You disagree?
He's not being the tough guy on the board. He's being what he is. He's the
That's
boss.
his job.
That's his boss. He's the commanding officer. You have somebody who arrives late for work. You don't just... You're not the tough guy on the field for saying, "Hey, well, what are you doing coming in the lurk, and what are you doing trying to sneak in when everybody else is working?" He didn't name call him or do anything, and he did pull him aside and say, "Hey, you need to shape up." I mean, he's doing his job.
He did his job.
He doesn't know off the top of his head the names of anybody that works in engineering for Geordi other than Barclay, and it's because Barclay's always on report.
Yeah.
And imagine what you would have to do to get on report from Geordi.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot.
And Geordi,
And
the
more than
chief
once.
engineer, he's talking, but he's talking about a personnel issue with Commander Riker.
And that's his job, personnel. Riker's
Yeah.
in charge of the crew.
And he's basically saying, "Hey, look, I'm having a problem with this guy. He's always he really didn't do it. They really weren't being tough guys or bullies. Now Barclay always will perceive it that way. Yes, you can tell from that hollow thing that he was doing. But in reality, that's the way I've had that exact type of conversation about staff, and I've been a lot less polite about it.
Well, here, in this opening scene, we see two sides of the same guy. One guy who likes to mouth off to his two bosses and is popular with the women, and then back into reality where he's in a very subservient, lesser power role and kind of seems to be pushed around by his bosses. So even though his bosses are doing their job, nobody likes seeing him bossed around. And so they introduce a very good dynamic with this character where it's like, okay, well, if he's confident by himself but subservient in a group, what is going on with this guy? So here we go. They're taking on a load of samples to the Micolax.
This looks so... That shot of the Enterprise looks so bad in SD.
Oh, yeah.
Corellium. So there's a new element.
And he's stuttering. This is great acting by Dave Schultz here. Dave Schultz?
Dwight.
There
Dwight
goes
Schultz
the
is a
look.
really. I mean, if you do remember him from the A-Team, he was one of the solid characters. I mean, he was one, of it, and he really helped carry that show.
I had the A-Team song stuck in my head.
I pity the fool who messes with Lieutenant Worf.
You'd think they'd have like a backup thing, like it would have wheels that would pop out of it, right?
Right.
Just it's like, oh, I guess we can't move any cargo today.
No.
The hover thing's down. We wouldn't go back to 10 forward.
I would say that probably the people that built it without wheels, and that was their selling point for it. Because they all went around. It was like, finally, a hover transport that does not require wheels for any reason.
But it's like, if for this just instance, you think they would have like an old style hand truck or something.
Yeah, pallet jack.
And
I hate to say it, but
So now they're discussing with the captain whether or not they should transfer Barclay out of there. Broccoli? Wait, you just called him Broccoli.
Yep.
Young Mr. Crusher started that. I guess.
Now they're planting a seed for a very rare joke in this show, because this show hardly ever has any jokes.
Ratings aboard a Zucop satisfactory.
Satisfactory.
This is really funny because as a supervisor, I've run into this problem a lot where Picard is looking through his HR files like, I don't get it. He gets glowing reviews from everybody.
But
That's always been a red flag for me.
He's not actually advancing. He's just being moved side to side.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's always when I've gotten transfers in and I've never seen any negative issues on it. I'm like, that's not right, because everybody's got some kind of, demerit on their record.
Well, that's interesting because this kind of, it's relieving that in a utopian society you can still get away with doing absolutely no work in a bureaucracy and not get fired. Oh, that's the worst advice ever, Picard. Make him your best friend.
Is it really good for a supervisor to be your best friend?
No. You can be friendly, you can be familiar, you can be respectful.
Take it from somebody that dated their supervisor. It's never a good idea.
But to some extent, then maybe he worded it wrong. But yeah, because he doesn't like him, he's made absolutely no effort to get to know him.
Yeah.
And there is a line where, you don't want to make him your best friend, but you do need to know your people.
How's it going?
This poor guy is still down here in the warehouse trying to figure out how to fix the
they've
the
switched
pallet
to
jack.
they've switched to the evening lighting in there. It's not. You'd think there'd be like a standard, lighting arrangement like it looked like when they were initially working in there for that space.
Yeah.
But
They mentioned why they do this. Is on a night shift is to simulate day and night, and it's.
Oh, say, Reg, how about sitting in on the mission briefing with my senior officers in the morning?
Oh, look at that.
I'd like your input.
Is invite him to a senior meeting. This is kind of the first time we realize that the engineering crew has teams and shifts and a command chain.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
It's the first time we've seen a meeting, but they've implied that he's talking about I'll have Gamma Shift do it, or
Sonia Gomez was in a similar position to Barclay.
Right.
Yes. Obviously he's got, probably his sub-department heads who, meet.
Now, the dumb thing is, again, talking about best friends, because Geordi and Wesley are friends, and Wesley usually comes. Geordi didn't want to tell him, hey, Wesley, you actually are part of the problem that I have with this guy. Like, it was mentioned by Picard that, what you did was not cool, so I'm going to work with Barclay, and you can sit this one out, but...
Or just shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Now, in our last episode, I don't see Russell in this setup, but that guy was there. He's sitting right... He was there.
Oh, Russell.
What happened to Russell?
Russell did die.
Look at Wesley giving the Trump grin, standing next to Barclay.
Why?
I'm an acting incident. The chief of engineering sure likes me.
Well, Wesley also is doing interim studies there too. So he's a student. When he's not on the bridge, he's doing this for what, college credit?
Yeah, you could say that.
Academy credit,
It wasn't amendment.
But he's gotten a little too... You can tell just by the way he's there. He's gotten a little too comfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, and if I were Geordi, I'd remind him, like, just remember, Wesley, you don't actually hold any real rank or authority here. You're a student, so you can comment on the problem, but you remember, these guys all outrank you.
You should,
in every sense of the way.
I would have told him because he was the one that came up with the broccoli thing.
Yeah.
Just sit this meeting out.
This meeting was really important because it established a pecking order.
Yep.
So even though Wesley and Barclay are very intelligent people, Wesley was able to clearly lay out the plan, and Barclay just kind of stammered his way through, and they showed facial expressions of the other people like, oh man, this guy's talking.
Now, I do think this is the first time we've seen Troy working with somebody that's not a senior officer on the Enterprise.
There we go.
You don't know.
Oh, this is a holodeck, I think.
Yep.
What makes you so sure it's a holodeck?
Because he's confident.
Oh, yeah, he's not stuttering. I was about to actually comment on that. I'm like, oh, it's interesting that he doesn't stutter around Deanna.
And the eye contact, too.
Let me help you relax.
Right, so Nigel. You never did answer the question.
I did think that was a pretty nice dress, yeah.
I have a short memory. What was that question again?
He thinks that he's Barclay, so I'm like, is it because...
As a kid, this was my favorite Star Trek episode because
cool.
I really identified with Barclay. I was the
guy that could get all of the girls.
In my own imagination, yes, but I was... Barclay says it later. I was the guy who has to rehearse what he says at a party and then ends up investigating a potted plant.
Oh, me too.
Yes. So seeing a stuttering guy be a hero of a sci-fi show it made us a favorite episode.
Oh, there's Troy, the goddess of empathy, basically.
I think I want to be this for Halloween.
I don't want to say she's whoring it up, but she's implying that, she's willing to share.
She's parodying herself, which
Yeah.
is actually fun.
I do remember this episode from being a kid because I couldn't distinguish between whether or not his name was Broccoli or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I always
Yeah,
think ever
that
afterwards
is
I
it.
called him Broccoli.
Not you, the kissing.
From the Goddess of Empathy, though.
Here we go.
That was a
Now
terrible
Jordy's giving him
kiss,
an
though.
earful.
Well, he's my new project.
Yeah.
Oh, so Wesley
Should have told him this before the meeting, not after.
And I shut him down. Poor Broccoli.
Yeah.
Seriously,
for
Wesley?
nothing if you call him Broccoli.
Right.
Yeah.
Barclay.
And he was so
referred
smug
to
about it.
clandestinely as a vegetable.
Was 1990, was that still like...
Nicknames.
I'm decoding this whole kissing thing because it was a really bad kiss.
Yeah.
It looked like he shoved his mouth
Yeah,
over,
that's
over
the
her chin.
the Jim Kirk kiss.
So were they still not allowed to do tongue back then?
Oh, look at that. He's got a leaky glass.
No.
Oh, no. But this is plot specific here.
And this poor dude here, he would have... you could see that this is the kind of prank Wesley would pull on somebody. Like, Jordy's having this serious meeting and Wesley's like, I gave you the glass that melts!
I don't know. No, that would be the prank that Data would play because he doesn't understand, and he'd be one of those, did we not find this humorous kind of thing?
Right.
Wesley would do some stupid, overly thought scientific thing that everyone would be like, I don't get it. Just be looking at him like, really?
I didn't even realize that Wesley even pulled pranks because it seemed like he wasn't ever the popular one in school. So why would he be pulling? I don't know.
Yeah, it would be one of those Data's experimenting with humor again kind of things, and he's... it's classic number whatever, the dribbling glass, It's
So just before the glass issue came up, LaForge actually showed some really genuine leadership there. He squashed the nickname calling. He's like, hey, we've got to stop this. He said, I'm trying to reach out and give this guy a lift up to be as an equal on our team. And he really is. By profession, he's an equal. So now they're giving this project to Barclay to figure out what caused the twisted glass. And it got twisted on an atomic level. And they're trying to figure out what caused it.
And it is possible that these two very disparate incidents could be related.
Their Data kind of does some quick plot writing for us, suggesting that the two incidents are connected.
You'd think you'd want to keep that in a lab,
Mm-hmm.
Or at least wear
Carry-
gloves.
Not touch
carry
it.
it around the ship.
Yes, for scientific reasons, we're going to have everybody on the ship touch this glass.
Well, we know that this glass is mostly gamma radiation, so we're not going to worry about it. Oh, here comes the joke. Here comes the joke. Picard, he's actively listening. He's kind of fake listening also.
I don't think he's fake listening, because I think he's one of those, he genuinely will be, no, I'm going to be nice to the guy.
I look forward to your report, Mr. Broccoli.
Oh, he called him by his nickname.
Barclay.
Oh my goodness. And Riker's just like, oh, he said the thing.
I don't think he was making a joke. He didn't remember. He might have been.
That was not a joke.
It was a slip.
He might have been right.
Yeah.
His name might have been. He had a meeting about a member of staff, And he was like, his name was either Broccoli or Barkley.
Yeah, and he just...
And it turned out it was Barkley.
Did you see Data just like, oh, look at this button over here?
Yeah.
And Riker's just smirking at him and like, really? You know, like, no, man. This is why you don't make stupid joke names for people and do it around the captain.
So then it
Of all.
came from Wesley?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wesley's
Why
called
do I feel like that's out of character for Wes?
It really is.
It is. It's Wesley. Well, it's Wesley being Wesley's a punk, anyways.
Yeah, but
He
not
kinda
that,
is.
not that kind of punk, is he?
Yeah.
If he knows everybody else doesn't like him, which he does,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm safe to make up a nickname for him.
Yeah.
If it was somebody that he wasn't sure what their status was, yeah, he might be a little bit more hesitant.
Yeah. It's like he's like, it's identifying the weak kid and joining in with everybody else.
I feel like Wesley was the weak kid, so...
Yeah, but he found somebody weaker, and so it's one of those... I'm used to getting picked on normally, but hey, look, I found somebody else who's even weirder than me.
Is pals with the command staff of the flagship of the Federation.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
You
not...
hate that kid.
Frequently gets spoken about in that whole, he seems like a boy, but he's more than a boy. He is a man boy.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Commander Riker's got his back.
I'm good without ever
he's-
hearing the term man boy, like, ever again.
Boys to men.
He's essentially like the spoiled rich kid on the ship, you know? His mom's the chief medical officer. Picard is looking out for him. Riker's is, hey, want to borrow the keys to the ship? Kind of thing, Geordi lets him hang out at staff meetings.
So Guinan's having a nice heart-to-heart here with Geordi. She's sharing a backstory about how she had a relative that everybody hated, except for her, that made him more interesting.
He's always late. The man's nervous. Nobody wants to be around this guy.
Sounds like LaForge is very angry about his social skills.
Which is also, I feel, out of character for Geordi.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, I mean, think about how the Enterprise works. Is that it's like when they're just doing stuff like this, routine maintenance and things, it's probably probably falls into a pretty wide window.
Mm.
There's probably like a good 15 minutes to a half an hour that can go by before you're considered late.
So
and probably even then it's like, I just happened to notice this guy's not at his duty station over and over and over again.
Yeah, with the exception of the 0800 staff meeting.
Yeah.
It's one of those, hey, we're going to be unloading this cargo. I need you, or what he says, I need you to fix this. He didn't say, you've got 2 hours to fix it.
Yeah.
I need you to start at this time. It's one of those...
This show never really established duty shifts. It's like you just walked around in your uniform when you were working and you were not in your uniform when you're not. And real quick reality check here. Is it appropriate to walk in on somebody's holodeck time?
I don't think it is, but...
What do you want?
And they'll mention that even here.
Jem is just cracking up over this Wesley costume.
But this is exactly the way people, if it were me on here, if I meant, this is how I would perceive Wesley too.
Yeah.
He's the spoiled boy who's just, I'm just, I can do whatever because my mom will let me do it.
We have a nice Three Musketeers reference here. Now, which one do you think is Porthos?
I do not know the...
Guessing Data.
Yeah. I don't know the Musketeers well enough to be able to distinguish between them. Although if you follow my Letterboxd account, I will be watching both of the Richard Fleischer Musketeer films for the first time this year. So.
Whoa, this is good stage acting. It looks like they had a lot of fun doing this. I know that the crew always liked to do stuff that wasn't either on Planet Hell or on the...
And this here is exactly what Dwight Schultz was like in the A-Team.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His wild eyes and it flaring about, and this kind of sequence is exactly what he was like in the A-Team.
Yes.
Makes me want to go back and watch it.
I mean, it is. Yeah. Barkley on the holodeck is his character from the A-Team.
Absolutely.
And it's perfect that they would choose him for this, because that's...
Yeah, I do want to kind of watch the A-Team now.
Not that old trick. I'm very disappointed in you.
So, why is he angry?
Well, it's also the unwritten rule that you
he's
don't...
on duty.
Yeah, and you don't do that about people, real life people.
He wasn't on duty. He was talking to Guy. LaForge was talking to Guy and says, "You're right. I'm going to go talk to him." And he goes, "Computer, where is he?" And it says holodeck. So he goes to the holodeck, crashes his program.
You don't know he's not on duty. We don't know what time of day it is.
He's in his uniform. He could be, put his casuals on if he wanted to go to the holodeck. And again, they established that they don't really have hard and tight rules for how to use the holodeck and when. But I would think it would make the most sense to be like, you need to be like, you can't, come out of a simulation like that in your Starfleet uniform unless it's a tactical thing or...
Yeah, if he was in there doing a diagnostic, like, show me a simulation of this. And you see that later on, like on Voyager, they do that a lot.
Let's slow down for a second here. Geordi is lecturing Barclay on how weird it is to create representations of real-life people that you already know. Just a few episodes ago, didn't he fall in love with the holodeck version of the engineer?
He mentions this to him, that he's had this problem himself.
Oh, okay.
But did he know that engineer that he fell in love with?
No, he had never met her.
No. Well, that's the joke, is that he will meet her here in the future.
But it's different with recreating people that you know and interact with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You don't know what a struggle this has been for me, Commander. Well, I'd like to help if I can. Being afraid all of the time. Of forgetting.
That's what I always thought it was interesting. This is the first time you see a flawed character. You've seen the character flaws of greed, ambition, and prejudice. But this is a guy who literally is like, he's almost,
There's your line, Nigel.
He finally gets there. He winds up alone in the corner, trying
to look comfortable
examining a potted plant.
Oh,
just shy, Barclay.
It's not shy; it's anxiety.
Just shy.
Just shy, Barclay. You need to watch Grover and Madeline Kahn sing to each other. No, it's Lena Horne that's saying that the shy song to Grover.
I know that I've been kind of going on about just assessments of mental health and all of that. I just think that that's why, getting a diagnosis versus writing it off as not a big deal is just, to me, I mean, like, there's different ways of handling it, but to me it's a little frustrating and sometimes infuriating because I'm like, you're invalidating what somebody is going through by saying, oh, they're just sad. They'll get through it. And it's like, but it's a thing. Like, it's a really hard thing that you have to live with for a really long time.
Getting that diagnosis actually can be... It's your initial permission to actually explore why it is, what's going on with you, and how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, like, when I received my depression diagnosis, I'm like, oh!
Yeah. Like,
okay.
But that's not the same
really
for everybody.
Yeah.
There's some people where those diagnoses are crushing.
Yeah.
And he's, again, worried about the stigmatism it'll place on his career. I mean, look at his age. He's got to be, probably in his late 30s, 40s? The character, not the actor.
Yeah.
In this thing. And he's only a lieutenant junior grade. He's at least the same age as Geordi. Geordi's a lieutenant commander, 2 full grades above him.
Excuse the coughing, folks.
And so, yeah, it's one of those...
Yeah, jeez. We all caught it.
Oh, no.
I didn't.
But he's trying to say I do have this. He's, like, it seems like he's okay with this. There is no stigma to him.
Well, he's telling Geordi because Geordi basically caught him having these issues. And Geordi's made the comment, but you're just shy. It's one of those, just like, stop being shy.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And he's like... That's why he explained it. He was like, well, no, it's not that simple. It's
right.
Oh, no.
Actually, there is.
Now he's in the real... He's in the real office of Miss Troy.
Yes.
And this kind of lends me to believe that, it's one of those... Troy really isn't a very good counselor.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Because she just gives him these platitudes and these one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try relaxing. Let's visualize, it's basically something it's like she Googled how to treat this and got the top 5 things to say.
Right, when she's and I hate to say it, but I am, when she's at work when she's doing the kind of work she's doing with him, she should not be dressed like that. And she should be, no.
Like that?
Like that.
She's
drawing attention to her chest.
Is she?
And some men are
And
not.
her-
And some men are not
And
comfortable.
she's got
with,
it like
yeah,
a thigh-high slit there.
yeah.
And turn the lights down.
I don't see
And
a
she-
slit.
And
Yeah,
she
wait.
should be picking.
She's wearing pants under it, so you can't tell that.
Yeah.
She's wearing
She should be picking up exactly what his issue with this is too.
Yeah, if she's this empath, she should really
Yes.
be like, well, I'm getting up against. You can tell he's extremely uncomfortable, even sitting in the same room with her, let alone this close to her. And then you see it in the way it plays out too. He sees what she's doing is she feels she can seduce everybody into doing whatever or
Don't
feeling whatever.
touch
and-
him.
Much better.
But the thing is, it's this scene is designed to make this character really uncomfortable because he's trying really hard not to get all excited about it turning into one of his, role plays on the holodeck.
Out to the mouth. I'm going to practice that, and I'll let
Well,
you
it's
know.
the also being very awkward around women thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But she doesn't have a supervisor either. Her program is completely, the Troy program.
yeah.
So
she's
she
the department head.
She gets to do what she wants.
Do you see
Normally,
this light now?
Yeah, I do.
yeah. Normally, any.
I had a very strange visit from one of your officers today.
Go ahead and discuss it right
Yeah.
around the bridge.
Yeah, come on.
Were you able to do anything for him?
To be honest, I'm not sure what happened.
She has some kind of phase inducer you could shoot him with and make him non-shy.
Lieutenant Barkley, report to the bridge.
So for some reason he's supposed to be right there. Why? I wonder why Riker walked out of the Freddy room there.
Yeah. Just kind of came out of nowhere.
Could have been in conference with Picard.
I'll get him.
No, I'll handle this. I've had it with him.
Counselor, you better.
Oh, Mr.
He was spoiling for a fight before he knew whether or not Barkley was even there.
Yep. Well, that's kind of Riker's thing.
Yeah.
Is he leads with he leads with irritation.
Now this is Riker being a tough guy jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Ran out of patience.
Yeah, it's like, well, Riker should have been briefed already on why he's going through all this stuff.
The first thing that Troy should have said was, "Look, he's going through some anxiety issues. If you go in and interrupt him,
Absolutely.
you're gonna undo the work I'm trying to do."
And Geordi should be telling him also, look, I think I finally figured out what's wrong with him. He's got these issues. We're trying to work through it, but yeah.
So there's the crew swashbuckling. Mr. Riker is not happy. He doesn't know what to think.
Like I said, Commander, Barkley's been running some unusual program.
This is a violation of protocol. Crew members should not be simulated in the holodeck.
Not exactly.
Commander, I don't think there's any
Yeah.
violation.
Yeah.
Well, there ought to be. Computer, discontinue program and erase.
Computer, belay that order.
Counselor?
If Barkley is having difficulty facing reality... just
Wait a minute, but if
to know
Deanna-
his only means of escape would be
She has less of a-
do
of a-
considerable damage.
Riker outranks her by
Uh,
far.
But they're kind of like on equal plane. So
Okay.
think department heads again.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say.
I mean, Riker could ultimately say, I'm overruling you, I'm shutting this down. But
Okay.
she does have the... Basically, like, would be like Dr. Crusher saying, well, now hold on, that's not what's good for the patient.
Okay.
I don't expect to fight.
Now I'm surprised that he's even talking to these characters. Oh, they need to know where Barkley is. Patrick
And I
Stewart
mean,
must have had
yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah, he's like,
It's
yes,
just-
old hat.
It's like, you know
I
he's
just feel
loving
bad
this almost as
for
much.
poor LeVar Burton that all these other people got all these costume accoutrements and he has to wear the visor in both versions.
Yeah.
Well, it's because that's how he perceives him.
My God! You, sir, you have a familiar bearing. Is it possible I saw
Yeah.
you across somewhere
And
That's
under
pretty
any
good.
other
Yeah.
circumstances, Riker would love this. And he would totally interact with you.
Oh yeah.
Be like, computer, sword. And he'd be like, and he'd just...
Well, it's because it's irritating. It's irritating his ego because
is.
he wants to be angry and in control, and he's not. He's not in control. It's interesting that Riker's holodeck version is so small. Like they shot him as a very short person.
You have no sense of fair play.
Just
He really doesn't.
So notice that Troy's been advocating this whole time, don't shut it down, don't shut it down.
Through all this to find it.
And we're about to see another reversal.
Valuable information about what's troubling her. You know, there's nothing wrong with a healthy fantasy life. As long
Nothing wrong. What? Nothing wrong with a healthy fantasy life, she says. Okay, here comes the setup.
element of humor. I am the goddess.
I can't with this, right?
It's just nuts.
Woo!
Truth. Joy.
She's like, And Riker's got this big old "I told you so" grin. He's like, "Oh, we can't delete that. We need more insight on what's troubling this poor
Can you
man."
transfer this program to Riker's personal file? And...
That now, she's just not having it.
Which is just the thing of it, it's like she has to understand that there are people on the ship that have fantasies about other crew members that they're not ever going to fulfill.
Yeah, this really shouldn't be a shock to her.
It's this episode always weirds me out because the way the holodecks work here is so different than how they're supposed to work in Deep Space Nine, because they can't create a version of Kira on that holodeck for lascivious purposes.
Oh yeah,
They had a whole thing about that where somebody wanted to have a holodeck experience with Kira.
Not exactly.
Well, you could really go into the minutia of like, well, you need a good holo image to make a picture of somebody, and for all we know, that their personnel files have a holo image of that person, so they could just load it up.
It could be that. So when they do the ship in a bottle episode, and Moriarty's able to make a simulation of the bridge crew and basically take control of the ship, it's possible a lot of these kind of experiences, like, all right, there needs to be pre-programmed in safeguards that do not allow you to make a copy of Captain Sisko or the first officer of the station.
Or it's like
because they could take control of the station then.
Or it's like on Futurama with blank robots. It's like they can look like that, but if you undressed them, it would just be look like a crash test dummy underneath.
Yeah.
Or, generic Caucasian female number 5.
Yeah, we're like a naked G.I. Joe doll.
Yeah.
So they found Barclay, they're dragging him to work, and now we're going to pop the clutch rather violently into the B-plot. So the ship just kind of jumped into an unknown speed. Well, not, they know, it's just accelerated uncontrollably.
You're going to be able to write a book on politics. Look, I know how easy it is to get caught up in. I fell in love in there once. Really? But I knew when it was time to turn it off and say goodbye.
He knew when to leave, but he didn't.
People that I create in there.
I would have loved to see characters like the Doctor from Voyager have the reverse of holo addiction. It's like, no, you need to go back to the holodeck. You've had too much real life.
Well, they kind of said that. I was like, no, you're asking to have, the same rights as a human being. And yeah, sorry, you don't get to have those.
So, why can't it be the other way around?
They do that on Deep Space Nine. They forced Nog. They tell Nog that the best place when he lost his leg was to live in the holodeck.
Right. And he spent time with Vic.
Yeah,
he was
and then Vic finally had to tell him, you need to leave the holodeck or you'll never leave the holodeck.
And in a lot of ways, actually, that was a good relationship because Vic was sentient. He knew, you can't have a relationship with me.
But it all stemmed from he couldn't handle reality. And so their counselor on the station said, no, we're going to send him into a fake environment. He needs more fantasy right now.
So, Jim and Nigel, I hate to tell you both right now, the rest of this episode is technobabble.
I remember.
So the engines have turned on and they can't turn them off.
It's kind of technobabble, though.
What is that glowing blue thing?
It's the warp core.
Okay. I never realized how loud it was.
Yeah, it's really loud. Well, it's supposed to be like the heartbeat of the ship, so it's got this pulse.
It's been around so long. They're actually ASMR channels. They're just the ambient noise of the Enterprise for 9 hours. of all different enterprises.
Interesting.
And they'll have like a comm badge go off occasionally, and the door chime and stuff. They have a Deep Space Nine one, and then
I can see that.
Swirl dampers. Nothing showed up in the diagnostics.
Like, all I can hear is the warp core now.
Oh, look at Barkley. He knows what to do, but he can't say it. You can see it on his face. It's like, I can do this.
What's the connection?
So 10 is when it's just really, really bad, right?
They can't breach 10. That doesn't happen until Voyager.
Okay.
So
You reach warp 10, you need to turn into a lizard.
you know how
Literally.
you know how the Richter scale is exponential.
Yes.
So like 5 is 10 times stronger than a 4.
Right.
So that's the same with warp speed. So warp 7 is 10 times faster than warp 6. So
Right.
they're going pretty fast.
Well, I remember it was one of my first questions is what warp speed, like what's the max speed of the Enterprise?
It's 9, I think they said it was like 9.8 or something
Okay.
like that, and that's supposed to be the fastest in the fleet. And then they do an episode in Voyager where they actually break the 10. And the pilot literally turns into a salamander.
They de-evolve because they hit all points of the universe at the same time.
Some weird ass thing.
It was some pretty bad writing.
Has there ever been a magnitude 10 earthquake?
no, it's
I don't
9.0.
know.
I think it's the highest that they predict could happen. It's like after that level, no matter how bad it is, they're not.
No,
the damage would be so bad you wouldn't really even be able
No
to.
stone would lie upon another, basically.
I think it's one of those world-ending ones. It's like the continent is cracking.
I really like this process of elimination here. So they think it's an external substance that's causing these problems.
Great. How many of those can exist in an oxygen atmosphere?
Whittling it down, how many can exist in
And could alter molecular structure when it comes
oxygen?
This is like a 24th century. Like, hey Alexa, how the ship's about to explode.
What do I do?
Yeah, what do we do? And how is it related to these things? Okay. No. Okay. Hey Alexa, eliminate these. I mean, that's literally what they're doing at this point.
Video, neither of which has been used for decades. But could either one of them cause all these malfunctions?
So they have 2 culprits on the ship, and it hasn't been used in a long time.
There's a kind of candy that one Ensign really likes. So you eating it near the warp core.
Yeah.
It has both of those things in it. Yep, it's a malted deuterium ball.
Has anybody been eating steamed clams lately? Because that affects this program in some weird way.
So now that they think it's a chemical exposure that's causing these technical problems.
What doesn't get me is they're like, we've only got 5 minutes. We need to hurry to the opposite end of the ship. It's like, isn't that what the site-to-site transporter is for?
Right.
It's like, literally, we're 5 minutes from blowing up. I'd be like, I kind of want to be there now, not spend a minute and a half walking.
The transporters cracked that container, though. They're probably not going to be using them.
Yeah, okay.
What I don't understand is why they're moving so slowly right here.
You have to, take the chemicals you're working with.
If you're working with an acid, you're not going to be like tossing it around. I mean, no matter what,
Smoke if you got them. You got 3.5 minutes. Oh, there it is.
In Star Trek, purple is always bad.
Really?
Aw.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We can get the iridium down to minus 200 degrees
I
Celsius.
thought the Jim Hadar purple was a pretty cool
Forge the
purple.
bridge.
Jim had our purple.
Yeah, their ships were purple.
They had purple paint on them, but they were still battleship gray.
But like the
highlights,
yeah, it was beautiful.
Again, bad.
We don't have much choice, do we? No, sir.
The Jim Hadar weren't bad. They just had bad bosses.
No, they were pretty bad.
Look at
Yeah,
this.
they were
Look at this
terrible.
strobe.
Guinan wears purple a lot.
Yeah, Troy wears purple. Again,
This seemed
Bad.
I missed it when she was talking to Jordy, but normally the top of her hat doesn't wiggle around like it did in this episode. She's wearing a very wiggly
The
hat.
yellow thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of a halo. Just kind of floating around there.
Temperature now minus 1.
What's with your hat gun? Oh, it's Ensign Johnson's hamster. I'm babysitting for him.
Temperature stays.
Why do you ask?
It has reached absolute zero.
So basically, the throttle is still stuck to open, and they can't get it unstuck.
Cycle power through ventral relay.
So now they're just trying to turn it off and turn it back on, cycling the power. Clean the gunk out of the mouse.
It's like gunning the engine and burning stuff off.
Yeah. There we go. They fixed it. With a few lines of narrative and some excellent music, we are now back to normal.
Mr. Barkley and I thank you, sir.
Baptism by fire.
Contaminated with Invidium, sir. Recommending we set a course for
So this legitimizes Barkley's place as a competent officer, that he can do his job when it counts.
Glad you were with us out here in the real world.
What I never liked about this character, though, is that he always advances and then regresses.
Yeah.
Well, he's got all sorts of
Sometimes
issues.
people do that, though.
Yeah, true.
It's a relapse. If you've got serious things, you'll have problems. I mean, you need to, you know.
Now, this is a beautiful moment right here. I absolutely love this. I remember watching this as a child, just thinking, this is such a cool form of closure for his holo
It
addiction.
has been most difficult to reach this decision to leave you.
So he's
After
quitting.
thinking about it and discussing it at length with Counselor Troy, I think it's for the best.
Very supportive.
I just wanted to thank you all for your support.
You'll always be welcome here.
I know. That's why it's so difficult to leave.
So it's difficult to leave a place where he's always feeling welcome.
That's what he just said.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Hey, you got through that without stuttering.
Right? Because he's on the holodeck.
Computer.
Oh.
He's saying goodbye to his video game.
End program.
I wonder if that's what I'm going to do when I finally stop playing video games. I'm just going to talk to Steam and say thank you for those decades of service.
I bet you'd probably say something to Star Trek.
Accept program 9.
Ah.
Except program.
If I were the computer, I'd be like, well, maybe you should have said that before you said erase all programs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share something with you folks, and I wanted to wait till the end to say this, is that one of the things that I loved about this show is that it got me away from my problems, from my reality. So I watched Star Trek so I wouldn't have to live with an hour of my life. And it was pretty bad growing up, and I became entwined with the narrative and the characters, and I lived and breathed that world because it seemed so idealistic that you could be welcomed into this family and you'd have a good old time, and at the end of the day you got away unscathed, more or less. And when I was reading the notes for this show, the person who wrote this, Sally Caves, actually had said that the inspiration for Reginald Barkley was a satirical description of Trekkies and their excessive obsession with imaginary characters, which really kind of hit me in the gut, because I'm a closeted Trekkie. Like I don't go out there and say I love Star Trek. Like I'm very modest about it. That's just who I am. I always get kind of a little happily embarrassed when people buy me like Star Trek socks or gifts or cups. I mean, it's neat. I don't seek that stuff out myself. But it's something that I keep very private to myself. And here we have a writer of the show kind of mocking people like me that take the show too seriously. And so it kind of made me think about, how many times have I watched this series over and over and over again? At least 10 or 15 times I've watched all these episodes through. Jem can vouch for me that in the years that we've known each other, I come home from work and I put a couple of episodes on, and I've done that for, I don't know, the 16 years that I've known you, 17 years?
18.
Yeah, 18, a long time. And and I was thinking about this with the review of this podcast, is that when we get to our final episode, will I continue watching Star Trek? am I ready to move on to other things in my life? Or will I just start paying attention to Picard now? And so the reason why I kind of go into this depth is I look at a character like Reginald, who is a vulnerable person, and in the world of Next Gen, vulnerable people are either, the alien that we never see again, that's kind of the sob story, but they're never really part of the family, or there's somebody to be shunned, like in the previous episode, Tin Man, where you had a vulnerable person who was damaged, but he's on the outside, so we have to be really angry at him. And only until Barclay proved his worth was he actually accepted for who he was. He did receive a lot of social exclusion from the very beginning, but he earned his lunch by doing his job when it counted. And that really rung a bell for me as an individual. It's like, it doesn't matter how weird you are, as long as you deliver on your promises and people can know that you're a reliable person. And that's a value that I think, that's honorable. But, I don't know where I'm going with this, other than I feel very moved by this character, Barclay. So when you ask me what are my top 50 episodes, all the Barclay episodes are going to be there. I think that this is probably one of the more sincere Barclay episodes.
Now, there's only 2 other Barclay episodes in this,
and then the Voyager Barclay episodes, and those are a little hackneyed.
They're not too bad.
But I would give it a good solid 5 out of 5, because it's good character development. We see a turnaround, and there's a hug and learn at the end, and it tells me that vulnerable people can be accepted in this society.
Before we do our ratings, I have a military question for Matt, because they brought up the idea that how did Barclay get through the academy? Now, if you go to a military academy, like if you go into Annapolis or if you go to West Point, do you go now presumably if you're attending a military academy, you're in the military, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't you go through something like basic if you go through like basic training if you're at one of those schools?
Go through a type of basic training. You're an officer, so
you've already gone through basic.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not. It's not the. You're not going through the same. I guess it's the same. It's a different type of basic training. You're not being trained as an enlisted. Mm-hmm. So basic training for enlisted is different than basic training for an officer.
Yeah.
And so you're being taught how to follow orders blindly as an enlisted, versus an officer is being taught how to give. Also how to receive orders, but how to give orders and be in command people.
It's kind of like going to.
And so you're doing physical training, yes, and you reach that. You do your standard.
But they say
pistol marksman and other combat things, but it's more focused on officer training.
Yeah, they say that Barclay went to the academy, but I'm assuming there must be people that are in Starfleet that did not attend the academy too.
And they would have the ROTC. They have an ROTC style program, and other enlisted schools. Chief O'Brien references that he started out as a tactical officer, and after he was recognized as being an engineering, they sent him to engineering school. And so that's how he started moving up and receiving promotions. And so they'll have NCO classes. I would imagine they have an ROTC program, the Reserve Officer Training, that's, where you could be an enlisted and then become an officer, or just decide, basically, I'm not going to the academy, but I'm still going to be an officer. And things like that. I was sure...
Because when Geordi asked, how could he possibly have gone through all of that?
Starfleet Academy, I guess, I would classify that different than a military. It's a military academy, but they also focus heavily on sciences and other. So look at the end. They talk about with Wesley with his entrance stuff. They're not looking at his combat prowess. They're looking at his intellectual stuff. The same thing in Deep Space Nine when they go through Nog. Nog is not a very powerful combat person, but he's a brilliant engineer. Starfleet Academy focuses heavily on your your engineering thing. So it's possible that they're looking at him and he's like, well, all right, he's got some social issue things, but he's a damn brilliant this, and we could really use his skills. And so it was like, just like his previous commands, like, we're going to give him a pass on this. Just make sure, because he's not it's not like he's joined the academy to become a security officer. He's joined to become an engineer. So they're looking at him like, all right, we're not going to rely on him to fire phasers and take down the Klingons. We're going to rely on him to fix the anti-grav unit.
Or maybe something traumatic happened to him between the Academy and his posting on the Enterprise that caused him to change as a person.
He could have been normal and then got to the Academy and just been surrounded by so many other people who were so confident that it shut him down. It could be any number of things. Now, his specialty in this, they list him as a diagnostic engineer. So he really, again, is not on the damage control team where the ship's blowing up and he's running into the fire storm. His job is, hey, the transporter's not working and my cup's leaking. Barclay, find out why my cup is leaking and report back to me. Like Pat said, he's got no real... You're on shift from 0800 to this. It's like when something's broken, we call Barclay and he comes and looks into it and fixes it.
He's the on-call maintenance guy.
Essentially, he's the guy who's like, it's like, we got something weird, it's not,
fix this pallet jack and fix this transporter.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. He's the guy who would call, it's like Picard would call and say, my sonic shower isn't working, it's kind of leaky in here. Could you say, but...
Troubleshooter, that's the name I'm looking for.
But he's a diagnostic engineer. His job is to... he gets an assignment and he figures things out. He's got no set shift where he's sitting in engineering at a desk somewhere, just, wait, that would make a funny cartoon where he's sitting at the Enterprise help desk. And there's just like he's just waiting for someone to call. He just be like those Chief O'Brien at work cartoons. He's just waiting for people to call out and say things are broken, and he goes and he fixes them. And then
it's funny to think that troubleshooting was not a term that was in common use in 1990 either.
Was it not?
No.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So how many goddesses of empathy do we want to give this episode?
That was exactly the rating scale I was thinking of too.
I give it a 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a perfect.
Oh, right. Did you give the?
I'll give 4 out of 5 just for the technobabble ending, because it felt like they could have expanded upon Barclay's healing a little bit more without all of the techno drama.
Right. So they rushed it.
Yeah.
I would give it a 5 out of 5. I'd also kind of put this in my top 5 Star Trek episodes.
Nice.
Obviously, as a shy kid, this was extremely validating because, as Sasha pointed out, it's a shy guy who can prove that he's still competent and that he can be competent. I actually really like that moment where the technobabble started for the simple reason that you can really see him shift from shy to once the stuff hits the fan, he knows what the problem is and he's getting over his stutter very gradually, saying this is what's wrong, this could be what's wrong, and then they figure it out and he's walking down the hall, he's walking confidently. I think Barclay's one of the more well-defined characters and he has a very clear arc. I really like the technobabble it was a simple enough of a problem, like the ship got poisoned, so it's gonna blow up, so we need to do something to fix the ship, that it didn't interfere with the character for me, so I would definitely give this a 5 out of 5.
Cool. Jeff?
Weird, because I would give it 2.5 out of 5 goddesses of empathy.
Okay.
And Pat was super curious to know what I was going to think about this episode, and I was wondering why.
Well, because I thought you think it was funny.
Oh, well.
I thought you think that Troy was funny, and you were cracking up at Wesley and doing his what is it? He's supposed to be a little Jack Horner.
Oh,
that's why he had his pie.
That's why. But
yeah.
And again, I wanted to like it, and I thought I was actually going to like it more than the previous episode. And in this one, actually, the acting saved it, and I liked, Barclay and that whole thing. That was the most intriguing part, but it was so distracting that the rest of the characters, at least the way that I know the characters, acted so out of character. I'm like, Geordi would never do that. Wesley would never do that. Nobody's acting the way that I perceive them to act. And so I thought, this would never actually happen in the Star Trek universe in my head. And so it seems to be out of place. If it were in another show and all of the characters were in line with what I imagined those characters to be, I would have thought it was a better episode.
I actually have a theory about that. In fiction writing, there is this term of the unreliable narrator, where you can't really trust because your narrator has seen things through their own perception. I think this show is this episode is largely seen through Barclay's perception, and so normally Riker isn't actually that aggressive and assertive, but
that's how he perceives him to be.
That's what he perceives him to be, and generally Geordi is. He's more like how he is in the second half of the episode, where he's calling him Reg and he's trying to understand him. But initially, before Geordi tries to get to know him, he's just saying, "Why are you so late? Why aren't you doing this? Blah 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 blah." This is his perception of what's going on, but it may not actually be true to the characters. It's the characters of Barclay's perception outside of the holodeck, and he's just overt about it on the holodeck, because there he's allowed to take his perceptions and just blow them out of proportion.
That's a really good analysis.
Yeah, I agree. I agree very much with that. I agree with you very much with how you.
Because sorry, Ben.
Oh no, just that was. You were saying exactly what I was thinking. Is that it's how a shy, sensitive person would see all these people. It's like, my boss isn't happy with me, so my boss must hate me. My boss must be at the end of his rope. Mm-hmm. Which, if like Jem said, if we've seen this show all the way through, it's like, you could probably cut Geordi's right arm off by accident. He'd be like, "No, I get it."
Yeah, right, yeah. And I'm like, this does not compute right now, so it's not believable to me. So that's why I wouldn't give it a higher score. The other thing, and this is probably just because it's me, is the bullying was annoying, and all of the Troy, all of the splendor that is Barclay's ideal Troy fantasy was also distracting. I'm like, what? I get it, but also it's making me roll my eyes because it doesn't advance the plot for me at all. So
I'm excited to see what you're gonna think about the first duty and also the episode Lower Decks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5.
The first duty is the one where Wesley's at the academy and him and his squad get in trouble and Picard has to go sort it out.
Right. Sorry, Matt. You were starting.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. I like the episode because I like Dwight Schultz in it. I agree. I get Nigel's take. My take on this though is Wesley is kind of that way. You rarely see episodes where they're not in their core group, and so this is the first time you see somebody who isn't part of the core group really defined. We don't see that. The next time you'll see a supporting character at this level would be when they bring Ensign Rowe in, and she who will make who's not a member of the main 7 or 6 or whatever level they're at, and then they bring him in, and Riker's history suggests that he does treat people this way. If you're not, he doesn't like people who don't fit his model of a Starfleet officer. You'll see that again when he interacts with Ensign Rowe. It's, you're not Starfleet material. You don't do this. You don't do that. You don't. It's the way Riker is. He's like that with everybody. He's very condescending to them. He's got this. His thing. The only one who Data and Picard acted the way they would normally act in this. Geordi, for all we know, Barclay's been on the Enterprise for a year. This is the first time we've seen him on camera, and he's been periodically late. And you can, with Geordi, you could say you could cut his right arm off, but at some point you push a nice guy it's just too much. It's just, at what point do I need to get rid of this guy? you know, having been in situations like this, it's like, yeah, I've had guys that I liked or guys I didn't know, and I was like, I can only carry this guy so long before his inability to do his job or communicate things in the job is causing a problem, and I can't take it. And I didn't make nicknames up for other people, and I wouldn't allow that from other officers. That was out of character for Jordy to allow other people to make fun of him and openly and be like, "Hey guys, he should have been more like, hey guys, what have I told you about that?" Kind of thing. But yeah, I've gotten to the end of my rope where I'm like, look, and I've gone to corporate, and corporate has told me, no, you got to make this guy work. And I'm not happy about it because I'm like, look, I've been trying to make this guy work. Picard can say make it work. Picard hasn't been working with him, every day for 6 months.
Actually, Tim Gunn can say make it work.
Yeah, but it's just one of those. Picard just says, make him your best friend. He's your new project, and it's like great. So now I gotta pay special attention to this guy, and you're on the flagship. It's expected that you meet a certain criteria when you get to there.
The best of the best. Well, that's exactly why Riker was so angry at Rose, because she just strolls on, gets a job.
You would stick, there are other lesser commands that Barclay could be placed on where his behavior wouldn't be much of a problem, is what Geordi's probably getting at. And it's just, here when the ship is about to, is in danger every 5 minutes, he needs a certain level. It could be he just got worn out, or part of it's probably, I can see the perception of, where you write it that way, but I thought it was a good episode. It showed that people still had flaws in the future. Not everybody's, the super genius, we can react in the same way. You still have people who are like that in there. It developed, you spent heavily developing a new character who you won't see again maybe more than once or twice.
Yeah, I think he's only in 2 more episodes.
And it's a real waste.
It is a waste.
Of all that character development and setting up. Because again, I go back to what they'll do later on with Ensign Rose. They'll do an equal amount of build-up in an episode for her, but then she appears 6 or 7 times throughout the season. And even makes a guest appearance in the last season to come back. And they were even talked about expanding her role in the Deep Space Nine.
She was supposed to be Kira.
Yeah, she was supposed to have the major Kira role. So, and again, it's another character flawed person in the, in there that, and it's just, they set it up, and it's like knowing, just because I've seen the whole series, I'm like, well, you set it up and then you intentionally just don't go anywhere. Now maybe Dwight Schultz just didn't want to be a regular or anything on there.
Or he's too expensive.
Or he's too expensive, but they should have picked I think a person who could have been a reoccurring on there. I'm just babbling at this point, but that's.
Well, that's all right. I think we've got pretty good analyses from all points here, and if you ever want to chime in and let us know what you think, because we talk on some really interesting hot button topics here, go ahead and feel free to write us at nextgenfirstgenpod@gmail.com, or you can find us on our Facebook page, Next Generation's First Generation. Also, we have a sister show. What is that called?
View from the Bridge, which is a Picard podcast, where Matt and I talk about Picard episodes almost weekly. We'll be a little ways into it now, where, peel back the curtain. It is only February when we're recording this, and you'll be hearing it in April. So, that's on Two True Freaks.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for joining us in this very intriguing analysis of Reginald Barclay, and we'd like to say, have a wonderful day.
2 long ones.
Yeah.
They're good ones.
Yeah.
Though.
Indeed.
Why am I interviewing you guys?
So you're the guest.
So Sasha, what's a Star Trek
Hi,
Next
I am the
Generation?
guest.
So, Sasha, what is Star Trek?
Seek us out at Next Generation's First Generation at iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Music credits include Electric Car by Poddington Bear. Broke for Free. As Colorful as Ever. Glass Android by Lee Rosevere. Claire de Lune Variations by Poddington Bear. Algorithms by Chad Crouch. Audio engineering by Sascha Shouties. Chief Meme Maker and episode cover credit goes to Matthew Kirschner. Logo and graphic art design credit goes to David Clawwitter. And special thanks to Patrick Delmore for working with other podcasts to make sure the good word gets out.
Do you have a podcast that you think people should be listening to? Send us your promos and we'll play them on the show. If you'd like to email the show, you can email us at nextgenfirstgenpod@gmail.com. I've been Patrick Delmore.
And this is Sascha Shouties. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful day.
Good night.